how does an authority business actually work in practice? I'm going to give you a little bit more detail than you may have had in the past. I started out as an IT geek. I didn't go to college or university or whatever. I went straight from school to being an IT guy. I went and worked at the local health authority doing temporary contracts as an IT guy. I backed up their computers on tapes and the normal low-level jobs. And then I got a job at the local college, which is where I was introduced to the internet. Fast forward a little bit, I was doing some freelance website building for local companies, which led me to think that's what I really wanted to do. I applied for a job at a well-regarded internet consultancy about an hour away from where I lived. And I got the job until I was made redundant. And that was the seed of wanting to have my own business, because I realized that working for somebody else feels like job security until you lose it. But I was made redundant at a really bad time. My daughter was in hospital. She'd just been born. And you can imagine how stressful it was applying for jobs and going for interviews and being away from her when any moment, and she could have died for months. A really scary time. That planted further seeds in my mind that I wanted to have more influence over my own destiny. But being made redundant and having a daughter in hospital and not having any work meant that we got into a lot of debt. So it was a few years before I could crawl out of that. I did get another job. It was a great job. Lots of really nice clients like Procter & Gamble, Hugo Boss, Lacoste, Durex and Heinz and all these really nice clients. And it gave me a lot of experience in direct marketing. This is the really crucial part for everybody listening. I was involved in all the geeky communities, and the main one that had an impact on my career was the computer programming communities. I'd already done some articles for the internet magazines, and I was one of the first people in the UK to write a tutorial about Microsoft ASP programming, because people were asking questions in these communities. I was answering these questions, and to stop repeating myself, I would write articles and I would make the articles better. All of a sudden, I was starting to get a little bit of a following just because people liked what I wrote and they liked my responses, and they might not have been technically better than anybody else's, but I think there's a lot to be said for how you answer as well as what you answer with. And when we get further into this, you'll see the importance of all of that. That led me to be recognized as a Microsoft MVP, which was a little bit of credibility and authority, which boosted it further. I was writing articles, those articles were getting traffic, and through the communities, I was invited to write on some big websites. They led to book deals, and those books were not mainstream bestsellers by any means, but they added more to my portfolio, my resume, and my credibility. But through my business side, I was teaching people programming. I got a little bit of ad revenue from the articles because of the sites that I was on, a revenue share. But people were sending me requests to do training with them, to coach them. I started off by being helpful. I got a little bit of a reputation and a following, and then people were saying, we need extra help from you. And I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk. I have entrepreneurial ideas, but I don't have an entrepreneurial gastrointestinal system. I'm too nervous, too anxious to have thought that was possible for me until it happened. That woke me up to a lot of things. My little side business of freelance developing websites and teaching people programming suddenly became something that could be the plan A rather than the plan B. The agency I was working for was laying lots of people off, making lots of people redundant. My team went from being a really big team down to me and somebody else. And we were laying off people every week. The dot-com boom and bust made me think back to when I was made redundant the first time. I was thinking history is going to repeat itself. I'm sure everybody at least has known somebody go through a similar situation or has been through it yourself. It made me think the only way of having any security is to make my own security. And that's when I reverse engineered what I'd done the first time around That became the authority blogger process after I started coaching and teaching other people and seeing what worked for them. Blogging became a serious tool for me at that point because I wanted to do what I did the first time. I wanted to do it consciously. So I started getting more involved in the blogging communities, the internet marketing communities, answered questions, asked questions, found people I could learn from. And I met a few people around 2004, 2005 who have been ever since significant to my career. That networking has paid off so many times. I went to a meetup in a place near Stansted in England, and I was actually physically sick. The nerves just gave way. I thought I'd made a terrible disaster of it. Turned out a couple of the contacts I made at that event earned me a lot of money, and they've been brilliant contacts. That networking was absolutely significant, and that's why I put a big emphasis on networking in the authority blogger course. And that's how the blogging started. And through the contacts I met, that's when I came in contact with Brian Clark and Darren Rouse, who have been very significant. That was the foundation for my business. All the things that I teach and I coach based on the experience of being in the programming niche by accident and then the internet marketing and blogging world on purpose. And it was an evolution. Because of the platform I had, I could go into the webmaster world. And from the webmaster world, I could go into the SEO and internet marketing. And as part of that, I was blogging, so I could go into blogging. It wasn't an immediate shift. It was an evolution over a couple of years. So that's the background. But what does that mean in practice? What does that mean to your business? Consider how I started out. Where did the attraction, retention, conversion, and sharing come from? I was actually in the sharing part in a way first. The attraction and the sharing was because I was in communities that already existed, that were already vibrant, that already had a population, that had an audience, right? I was in there taking part in discussions that were already going on, and I was helping people. If you think about the communities that are in your niche, there'll be forums, there'll be social media, there will be other blogs. You can get a name for yourself by being useful and helpful in those places. The retention was I had articles constantly coming out that were updating people on new stuff, new techniques, answers to problems, solutions, ideas. And I actually did start building an email list, and it was cobbled together. It wasn't using a professional service. And community has its own retention. So being constantly appearing in communities, physically and virtually, that has its own retention. In the beginning, the conversion was people asking me to do stuff for them, like teach them, coach them, or fix their problems. But the sharing was mostly then through email and through forums. Somebody would say, how do you do this in ASP.net? And someone would post a link to one of my articles, or I would. As long as you were doing it to answer a question, it wasn't seen as a bad thing. Later on, the attraction was my articles about blogging and internet marketing and internet business. The retention was my email list. Conversion was my products and services, which I'll show in a sec. And sharing has evolved to be Twitter and Facebook and things like that. You have to look at your own business and look for where your audience is hanging out, how you can attract them, how you can keep them interested, what keep looking at, what products and services they want to buy, and then how to encourage more sharing. In terms of content, it's attraction, retention, and sharing, which brings back people to attraction. Once you build up some know, like, and trust, and you have something that people want, you can sell to them. And that's how you have a business, because until you get customers, you don't have a business. And you don't really have a proper business until you can sell over and over again, because otherwise you just sold your product one time. Scalability and selling over and over again is crucial. And a couple of times it's nearly crushed me. When I lived in the UK, the business was quite different, and I had varying numbers of retainer clients. And they're the people who come back every month and they pay you a certain amount of money for a certain amount of guaranteed time or work. And they were great. The problem I had was my mindset, my psychological makeup meant that I'd gone from having a boss to having several bosses because I was just working for them. And I wasn't looking to bring in new business because I had business that sustained me. And that made me complacent. When I moved to Canada, all of that went away because they were face-to-face clients mostly, or because the contracts ran out. And suddenly I had to rebuild the business. It was a brand new business. And the structure that I'm going to show you is what I ended up with. But I managed to bring my workload down to essentially a 3-day work week. Sometimes the hours were spread out. Sometimes it was on the core days that I set aside. But essentially it was a 3-day work week. Would I be able to sustain that long term? Probably not, because one of the things that I cut down on was the amount of networking I was doing. And the other thing I cut down on was the amount of marketing I was doing. I wasn't writing as much on my blog. Maybe the long-term impact, but I managed to be able to spend all summer, give a lot of time to my family. And that's what it was about, because I knew it was the first year in a new country and my daughter was at a new school and she was going to get even more time off that summer. It wouldn't be fair to them. The way I did it was, you may have heard the phrase minimum effective dose, and the other phrase is the 80-20 principle. And I talked about this in one of the modules, but essentially I only did the essential and non-essential but significant value jobs. The nice to haves went away. You look to where the value for yourself and your customers is coming into your business. Having a blog is a way to attract and retain interest from an audience. It's a marketing tool. And that marketing tool has to develop desire for your products and services. Otherwise, it's not generating leads. And I discovered that the core things that I did in my business to service customers was to speak to them on Skype, answer the emails from customers, to do things like these webinars. There were things that I could schedule in a calendar. So that's great. The emails are just time shifted. I answer them when they come in or when I get a chance. And the marketing was about getting people onto the com. That was where I was getting the most value. I trimmed back some of my travel. I trimmed back some of my networking at physical events, which I had to be careful about because obviously I have got great value from networking. That's how I went down to 3-day work week. And I'm not doing 3-day work week now. I do what I need to do. But I'm not working 7 days a week anymore, which is the crucial thing, because we don't live to work. We work to support our living. Look at your own business and look where the real essential parts are. What is the stuff that actually makes you money or directly contributes to you making money? What is the stuff that gives your customers the best possible service? They're the things to focus on. I was doing too many things, saying yes too many times, just nice to have. Sometimes it's okay to say no to an interview when you've got a deadline to come in. It's okay to say no to somebody asking you to write a guest article if you don't think it's a good fit for your audience and your business, etc. Say no more. You'll have your sanity. This is how my business works now. I have referral sources that send me prospects, so names on email lists. Think of it in terms of attraction and retention. I have various people that send me traffic, and that's because I've got articles out there, or they've linked to me, or because they actually refer business to me. These people go on to my email list. That's the retention. And then the conversion is people will buy either one of my lead generation products, which are between $17 to $97. Smaller products I see as useful for the customers, but actually for me, it's a lead generator. It's somebody paying to be a customer. My core flagship product is Authority Blogger, and my most intensive and most intimate product or service is my coaching. So in amongst that, I do 1-hour consulting and I do critiques, and I see those as being lead generators for the coaching. So a percentage of the people that do an hour call with me via the christie.com services or they ask for a critique, a percentage of those come back for extra help and they turn into coaching clients sometimes. Not all of them, because a lot of the time the critique's all they wanted, or they just wanted the publicity from the critique, or an hour fixes the problem. But the majority of my coaching clients come from two places, either our consulting calls and critique, or they come from the Authority Blogger course because they want that extra help. And that's why you don't see me promote the coaching very much. The thing that I focus on most of all is my flagship product, Authority Blogger, and that's the core thing. And I recommend everybody have a flagship product or service. I started out with consulting, coaching, and teaching and training in programming. And I did the same thing when I launched my blog, relaunched it in 2007. I started with consulting and coaching. The best thing that my business has had in terms of the 80-20 rule is having a flagship product that I can sell over and over again, that gets a positive reputation, that I've been running Authority Blogger for years and years. And the testimonials and case studies and reputation helps sell the thing. And I've been able to come back and build on it and build on it. It's a very different course to when it started out. It was mostly text. It's mostly webinars now, but the reputation is built. And then in terms of sharing referrals and advocates, I talk about attraction, retention, conversion, advocates, or word of mouth, or sharing, however you want to describe it. Most of that comes from my happy customers. The best fans I've got are my happy customers. And I recommend you look at your own business in a similar way. Who is referring to you? You need to build up a set of traffic referrals, but also business referrals. Who are your target prospects? Who can you most help? Who are easiest to reach? Who do you like working with? And then what can they buy that suits where they are right now and what they want to achieve, where they want to go? Not everybody is going to be able to be a coaching client. A lot of people want something more than something tactical or something small, something more than an ebook. Your flagship product sits in between those two things. It's substantial. It's something the majority of your prospects could use to get ahead. And then how you treat customers, how you nurture your customers. And I think one of the things that's really vital in today's online business especially is actually caring about your customers and wanting them to get results and get ahead, and for that to come through. A little bit about Authority Blogger. It actually started out as the approach and the flow that I went through with my early coaching customers, and I developed it into a course. And I had analysis paralysis for months. When it came down to the crunch, I had some friends and I had some customers saying, Chris, get over yourself. You need to launch this thing. And that's where what I describe as a minimum viable product, which came about from the Lean Startup and various other books, that approach, that naming convention, if you like. That's when I developed that approach of saying, okay, this is a beta launch. I want you to give me feedback. This is what I think will be helpful and useful. I'm going to build it bit by bit, come back and tell me what else you need. Tell me where it's good, where it's not good. And I quietly launched it to some coaching clients and then brought in some more customers, and developed it over time. 2 lessons from that. 1, you're never going to make something perfect straight away. Do it organically and with your customer rather than just for your customer. And secondly, you can defeat procrastination and analysis paralysis if you give somebody else the incentive and the motivation to encourage you to do it by pre-selling and by co-creating, by basically having a deadline where people had paid for that deadline. That made me get the product out of my head and into the world. And some of those early customers, friends now, some of those early customers come back and still come back to do the Authority Blogger program. And it's been the best thing I ever created. But at the time, it wasn't my flagship offering, it was my flagship product. And the difference is now it's the core to my business. Back then, it was something that if it sold, I was happy. If it didn't sell, well, I had my retainer customers. Now, my flagship product is the core of my business, and I open it whenever I have time to do the calls, because as a bonus, I give one-to-one calls, private calls. And there is a hard limit to how many of those I can do, especially when I've got coaching clients on top and I've got meetings to have and things like that. For most businesses, and Paul asked this, would you expect more revenue to come from the coaching or the flagship product? For most businesses, the flagship product is probably going to be your main revenue driver, but I would not recommend that as a business model. I wouldn't recommend you set that as your goal. And the reason is, I never want anybody to put all their eggs into one basket, and whether that's revenue, traffic, referrals, contacts. I never rely on any one thing. In my business, I try to have a pretty even split, so that if I didn't get any more authority blogger clients ever again, I would still have a business. If I'd never had any more coaching clients again, I would still have a business. Now, obviously, you lose more than one thing, you're in trouble, right? I try to make it so that there's a balance, that you're not relying on any one thing too heavily. Make sure your stool's got 3 legs, is basically what I'm saying. And it comes back to that flow, where your referrals are coming from, where your prospects are coming from, what are they buying and what do they buy next, okay? I don't do a very good sales job. In fact, I try to run away from doing sales. My business could actually be a lot better if I was more of a salesperson. But enough people naturally go through the system that I'm okay. And I've got enough money in the bank that I've got choices for a good few months if nothing ever came back in. Authority Blogger is the core of it. It's the thing that people ask about. They ask me when it's opening up again. I think that's a good sign that you've got a flagship product. And it's the thing that a lot of people associate with me. But the other thing would be the Pro Blogger book. But as most people will know, you don't actually make much money from print books. It's an authority and a credibility builder having a print book. Ebooks, a bit more profitable. That's where Authority Blogger fits in. And the lesson there is to have your flagship product, have something that you're known for, that you can sell over and over again, that you can build on in both reputation and content. This is where my referrals come from. So I looked at my Google Analytics, and in the last 30 days, I've had 400 or so new people add their names to my chrisg.com email list. Okay, so I've got other lists, as you know, but this is for chrisg.com, and these are where my referrals are coming from. There's lots and lots and lots of people who have sent me one email address, one new person. There's quite a few that have sent me a handful, and mail.yahoo.net just means that somebody sent a link around on email, or it's an article that people received in a newsletter, or it could have been an email discussion list. Chris Gillibo, over the years, has sent me some really good referrals because he credits me with a little bit of helping him get started, because I did a critique quite early on in his business that he took the advice and it worked for him. Copyblogger, a few years ago, I did a lot of guest posting, and some people told me I was overexposed and they were insulting me and attacking me. I backed off. I need to really go back and post for Copyblogger more. But you'll see that in terms of numbers, Chris Gillibo sent me 20 and Copyblogger sent me 21. Copyblogger was a whole bunch of guest posts. I think Chris Gillibo has only mentioned me once or twice. So it's a bit funny that warm referrals from somebody else who's trusted almost always work better than any other type of referral. Scallywag has just linked to me a couple of times. And then Google Organic is search traffic, and direct/none could be people typing in chrisg.com. It could be people hearing me on an interview or a webinar and typing the domain in, or it could be social media that can't be tracked. It could be emails that can't be tracked, people using desktop email clients, people using TweetDeck, that kind of thing. And the key part of this is that you have to develop referral sources that are constantly putting new people onto your list. It's not about having 1,000 people on your list and then you've got a business. You have to be getting repeat traffic, so you get lots of people adding to your list all the time. You need fresh blood into your system. And One of the really good things about these stats that I'm showing you is I've not been posting very much, but because my business is established, because of these referral sources, I'm still getting traffic. I'm still getting people in. People are adding to the email list. And remember, you can lose people from your email list as well. You need to be replacing those and preferably growing. Even though I've not been doing a lot of stuff that I should have been doing on my blog to attract new people, it's still sustaining itself because it has that momentum now. It has those referrals set up. You're not going to get those from the first day. And that's why you have to put extra effort in at the start to start that snowball. Paul asks, is the source report first touch or last touch? The report is people coming to the site and then ending up on the goal is set up for people that end up on the free ebook, people who go all the way through and get to the ebook page, because that's how I track people converting. For most people, I would recommend you put the goal as being the thank you page. When somebody signed up and confirmed, that is what you track, how many people get to the thank you page. You've been confirmed, thank you for signing up. It's from the first page of view on chrisg.com all the way through. It's people referring to that first page, telling me which page they converted on. It's where they were sent from, if that makes sense. I get a certain amount of SEO traffic, but I don't rely on it because so many people have been slapped by Google. Google changes things, you lose all your traffic. A certain amount of social media, but I've not been very active on social media recently because I've had so much work to do. A lot of my traffic comes from links, so they might only send 21 subscribers. Cumulatively, the more links you get, the more traffic you're going to get, both from search and from direct. But other can be a lot more significant. What comes into other? Other is people saying, if you want help with that, you should check out Chris, right? It could be speaking, it could be interviews, it could be appearing in a magazine, it could be things like the top 10 people in blah, blah, blah. Sometimes the smaller numbers, but their bigger referrals turn out to be better customers. If somebody makes a strong recommendation in your favor on your behalf, that can often work better than getting 1,000 visitors. Don't overlook the other. And affiliates would come into that, but actually affiliates for me is not a significant part of my business, partly because of the technology letting me down, but affiliates are very good at referrals, so it should be something that you work on. I need a better shopping cart. But as you can see, I've got things that are sending me traffic repeatedly. They go to my blog and hopefully sign up to my email list. And that's when they become a prospect, a warm prospect. I can credit to connections, building connections. You need other people. You need other people to send you referrals. You need other people to let you guest post for them. You need other people to give you help, to give you support, to be there when things aren't going very well. You know, if we go back to my story, some of the most significant people I met early on. You develop those relationships. The people I met back in 2004, 2005 weren't world famous gurus. They became bigger. You can build up some really good connections online and some trust online. As I always say, it's not about who you want in your network. It's about why would they want you in their network. It's about being valuable and useful and friendly so that they'll want to talk to you. And when they think of how you might help, then your name comes up, and that's how things come about. I can't take credit for a lot of the stuff that's come before this because the opportunities for a lot of the stuff came through these connections. What's a good example of that? The Third Tribe. The reason why they thought of me was because I was already in there answering questions and being helpful. And it was just natural. A lot of people thought I was already part of the organization when I wasn't really. I was only informally hanging out there. That's how those connections develop, and that's how it pays off for you. People, absolutely crucial. But how do my launches work? I have had launches for Authority Blogger that have been purely just a waiting list. And enough people from the waiting list that I'd not be able to schedule any more calls. I've closed it before anybody really knew about it, apart from the people on the waiting list. And I've had full launches where I've gone to the chrisg.com list once or twice, and everything in between. These are the crucial elements, though. A rapid launch requires you to educate, tell people about what you're going to be teaching, build desire for the solution because they've got the problem. You can't just say, okay, it's available for sale. People buy before they buy. They have to start thinking about things. You have to educate. You have to tell people what the situation is, what the problem is you're solving, what it'll do for people. And so that could be blog posts, it could be emails. And then you have to inspire. You have to show that it's not just possible what they want or to solve the problem, but, it's possible for them. And you have to motivate them. That could be motivated through your content by telling people, okay, you can do this and you really should do it and put it to try. But also by having urgency and scarcity, by setting a deadline, not only does that help you achieve what you want to achieve because you're motivated and you're not procrastinating, but also motivates your customers to take action because they've got a deadline. And a lot of the sales will come on the last day when you say, okay, this is the last chance, it's closing. And it could be scarcity. In the last launch for Authority Blogger, there were only 35 people could get the one-to-one training calls or coaching calls. After that, I didn't have any more capacity. I looked at my calendar. I looked at how many hours I'd got available. As you can imagine, a lot of people will take one call straight away as a before, and a lot of people will take another call after they've made some changes and they have it as an after. Whenever I launch Authority Blogger, I have a couple of weeks of solid bookings, right? There's only so many hours in a week. The thing a lot of people miss is giving people the next step. It's the usual error, assuming that other people understand, assuming people know what's in your head. It's not always obvious. Tell people exactly what they should do next. When I say I don't launch my coaching, I still go through these processes. I will still, in my content, talk about coaching. I'll still talk about my coaching clients and what they've been through and what they've achieved. So they're still educated, inspired, and motivated. And the next step is usually just a soft link to my coaching page. In my webinars, I will do all of these steps at the same time. I'll spend the majority of the webinar educating, inspiring, and motivating. And then at the end, I'll say, and if you're ready to take the next step, if this is something you're interested in, this is the offer page. That's how you compress your launches down. That's how you don't do as much selling. And that's how I've become more comfortable with that aspect of the business. I don't like selling. And this is where you start. And this is a place that people get very wrong. It's not just about what you want to write about in your blog. It's not just about what you want to teach people. It's not just about what you've got to offer. You've got to intersect that with what your target audience wants and needs. The sweet spot is the intersection of what you know and what they want. It's crucial you get that. It's crucial you that because a lot of blogs I see, they're all over the map. They talk about so many different things. You can't pin them down to being beneficial about one thing. Or it's vague as to who the target audience might be, who might benefit from this. Remember, what's in it for me? If I come to the website, I need to know within seconds what's in it for me. If you get this right, if you work out how you can make a significant, profound impact on an audience, and you demonstrate proof and solutions and usefulness and being friendly and helpful in all the places that you turn up, then you're going to get more progress and people are going to want to buy from you. So it starts with working out what you know that other people want. And that comes back to audience research. And then write about the intersection of that, what you know and what the audience wants. And it goes back full circle. That's what I started out with. I was answering questions in forums and email discussion lists, and I was writing up those articles into resources. That's how I started. And I didn't even offer anything to start off with, but people were sending me requests and saying, I want to send you a check. I want you to teach my people. In summary, before we get to the Q&A and the critiques, focus on people. That's in your network and in your audience, your prospects. Being helpful is probably the best thing you can do. Getting a reputation for being helpful, been useful, and try things. As I said, my business has evolved so much since 2005 and before that. Connect with people, engage your audience. And the best thing you can do is solve problems that people actually have, that they've identified. It's not just about having products for sale. I wish so many people wouldn't write the book for 6 to 8 months and then hope that people are going to buy it. It's far easier to start with what people actually struggling with or what they want to achieve and help them with that. And then find out what works and do more of it. Do your priority ones and priority twos. Focus on the core benefits to your customers and to your business, and then you'll not get overwhelmed with it.